One thing I have been observing I've been reading news on this pandemic for hours on end, pretty much every day of the week, or at least 6 days of the week for the past, I don't know, 2 months. And one thing that happens during an event of this scale is you watch how different political systems and different political leaders react, and you see shortcomings, you see weak points, you also see strong points. And of course, in a democracy like the United States sees, people are going to be critical of whoever is in power, because no matter who had been in power, this is a really big problem to be handling. So I have tried not to fall for ideological partisan attacks. On the other hand, you do have to point out the shortcomings. For example, Angela Merkel of Germany, she's not a leftist, she's not a socialist, she's right of center on the political spectrum, just like Donald Trump is. I don't know where Donald Trump is. I don't know if he's right of center of, I think of him as a new virus, a new political virus, because in 2016, pretty much the Republican Party establishment, including two of the former presidents from that party, the two Bushes, and the immediate past nominee, Mitt Romney, they all seem to be hostile to the idea of Donald Trump. So, this guy, I think of him as a new political virus. But anyways, like if it is about being right of center as opposed to left of center, the woman in power in Germany, that's what she is. She is right of center. So I guess you can be right of center and still listen to basic science, right? Also, it's not just about Donald Trump, the person. I think we have come to see the severe deficiencies in the American political system. When you read stories about how farmers in Florida are basically plowing back their produce into the land because, harvesting is not worth it. The market is shut down. On the other hand, there are people in other parts of the country who are lacking for food. So if you are willing to pass a stimulus package that is bigger than your annual budget, maybe you have the resources to take a few billion out of those trillions and buy those produce from those farmers and take those produce to people who are in need, which happens to be people everywhere right now. And if you can't do that, that's not lack of resources, because obviously you just give $500 billion to the richest people in the country, right? In this economic downturn, $500 billion went straight to the richest Americans. That's not a sound political system. Also, for all the scapegoating that Trump has done of the World Health Organization, I was just reading about Singapore. Singapore is the same size and population density of New York City, but it has had far fewer cases, far fewer deaths, like orders of magnitude compared to New York City. How come? So, I mean, it was all over the news. Even when the World Health Organization officially termed this a pandemic, the US as a country slept for another at least 6 weeks. 6 weeks were lost. If the goal was to do the minimum possible damage to the American economy, the best thing to do was an immediate, coordinated 50-state shutdown led by the president. And using those 3 or 4 weeks to put in place all that you need to do for rapid testing and contact tracing and all that stuff, so that you can then gradually reopen the economy. That would have been the least expensive thing to do. That was not done. 6 precious weeks were lost. That was that. But even now, with all these weeks of uncoordinated lockdowns all across the country, the political fight goes on in DC, and you have people like Mitch McConnell threatening states like New York and New Jersey with bankruptcy. Something like that would be much worse than when in 2008 Lehman Brothers was allowed to collapse. There was one bank. There are a lot of, allowing a state like New York to collapse financially would be much worse in terms of sending out signals and impacting not only the national economy but the global economy in terms of the kind of signal you are sending. Much worse than when that bank in 2008, Lehman Brothers, was allowed to collapse. Oil is another story that has come along during this pandemic, when oil prices have gone into the negative. It's not even zero. It's not even low. It's not $10 per barrel would have been low. But this is not low. This is not even zero. This is negative. If you were to take the oil and if you were to store it, they would pay you money. They would give you the oil for free and they would pay you money to store the oil. That's what the prices are right now. Unimaginable. This has never happened before, where the oil price is not only very low, it's in the negative. There's news that there are 26 oil tankers on the way from Saudi Arabia, and when they hit American shores, as soon as they hit the American shores, the oil industry in the US collapses, because it will no longer be worth it for people, all these fracking people who dig out oil in the dirtiest ways possible. It will no longer be economically feasible for them to keep doing that. And so the oil industry collapses. A crisis like this, with the right leadership, is often a chance to rebuild a much better future, to reimagine a much better future. I cannot think of a better time than now to launch an ambitious program like what a lot of people call the Green New Deal. And the Green New Deal is not exactly a program right now. It's more a vision. It's a broad vision. It's a brushstroke. But this crisis would be an excellent time during which to launch the Green New Deal, or something that ambitious, where you re-engineer the entire economy, tackle climate change for good. that's the kind of opportunity this pandemic is giving to this country and to humanity at large. Also, this pandemic is like everyone, workers around the world have gone on strike. It was not planned, it's not voluntary, but because of the virus, it's as if workers around the world, blue-collar workers, white-collar workers, everybody is on strike right now. And when everybody is on strike, you realize it's not money, it's not machines, it's not money and machines that move the economy. It's people. If people stay in their homes, there's no economy, right? So the importance of people has been established. And when people are forced to stay in their homes, the first thing you have to provide, and you have to provide, is food. Wherever food is, you take it from there and you take it to wherever the need is. No questions asked. No money exchanging hands. Right? That's the challenge that America is facing, India is facing, and every country in between. You have to do it. And it is for the government to do it. Right? So that is established. The world has enough food to feed everybody. Well, then do it. Feed everybody, right? That's the first thing that has been established. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to have an economy. The second thing is health. Like in the best case scenario, we end up with a vaccine in about a year and a half. Well, even if we end up with a vaccine, unless it goes to everybody, that doesn't do any good, right? So that basic health has to be taken to every human being. Because of this virus, that basic health has to be taken to everybody in this country and across the world. Otherwise, you don't have an economy. You don't have an economy for rich people or poor people. So this virus is forcing a fundamental rethink on various political and economic levels. One way to look at this pandemic is, it is an excellent opportunity for the leaders of the world to come around and tackle climate change right now, to make the changes right now. Just like on the vaccine effort, leading scientists and scientific groups and agencies and organizations around the world are all working closely together. Well, the various countries around the world have to similarly work together in close coordination to first tackle this pandemic, and not only the medicine aspects, but also the political and economic aspects, the food distribution aspects, and the medical care aspects. But then that exercise also puts the world in a very good position to tackle climate change. And the time to tackle climate change is right now. 5 years from now will be too late. 10 years from now, absolutely too late. In about 10, 12 years, we fall off the cliff as a civilization. So, one way to look at it, this situation is, this pandemic could not have come any sooner, as long as we seize the moment.